Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew DeSantis,
And I'm Kaylie Shapiro.
and welcome to this NYRA Bets video looking at the first reaction of Saturday's Pegasus World Cup. Kaylie, we have a lot of exciting races taking place down at Gulfstream Park on Saturday, and we're going to look at three of them in particular: the Pegasus World Cup Filly and Mare Turf, the Pegasus World Cup Turf, and then the Pegasus World Cup. But before we get to that, make sure to press that like and subscribe button on the NYRA Bets YouTube channel today. Subscribing is entirely free of cost, just notifies you when new videos drop on the channel. We got a lot of videos coming this week. Kaylie and I are going to be back with a Road to the Kentucky Derby, Road to the Kentucky Oaks episode, talking a little bit about what we saw this past weekend, what we might be seeing in the coming weeks. So a lot of exciting stuff there. I'll be joined by Acacia Clement on an episode of Snowbirds, where we cover some more races down here at Gulfstream Park. And we're going to be having Matt Dinnerman on from Oaklawn to talk about the Southwest Stakes. So a lot of great content here on NYRA Bets YouTube. So make sure to press that like and subscribe button today. Kaylie, like I said, we got a lot of big races this weekend at, I was going to say at Saratoga. It's not at Saratoga. It's at Gulfstream Park. I don't know why my mind summer. Maybe I'm just thinking of warm weather. It's going to be nice down at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. This is a fun time of year and kind of really kicks off the racing calendar for 2025.
100%. And obviously it ended up drawing, I think, pretty competitively the field. I know there was a lot of talk about, like a couple other horses coming that didn't end up coming, like Sierra Leone and Fierceness and Anna, but I still think that the race drew up really competitively. And the post positions make it pretty interesting as well. So I think it's going to be a fun race to handicap.
Absolutely. We should mention full fields for all three signature races, the Filly and Mare Turf, the Turf, and the Pegasus World Cup. So that's really all you can ask for from a betting standpoint, that you get 12 horses in all of three of those fields. A lot of different betting interests. As Kaylie pointed out, some post position could play a little bit of a role. And we're going to just dive in, give you some first thoughts, first reactions to some of these fields. And we'll get started with the Pegasus Filly and Mare Turf, which is a grade 2, going a mile and a 16th for 4-year-old and up fillies and mares. Field of 12. You can see the field here on your screen. Your morning line favorite, a very tepid favorite, is Rakaya on the inside rail. This is a horse making second start in North America, coming off of a win last time out, won 2 races ago over in Goodwood, actually over in the UK as well. Very talented for trainer Todd Pletcher. Will be able to save ground on the inside. But you also have a horse like Sacred Wish for George Weaver. You have a horse that I'm always a sucker for, Papilio, who I had to crack up when Brian Nadeau, who makes the morning line down at Gulfstream Park, said the horse had a troubled trip last time. Papilio always has a troubled trip because Papilio refuses to run in a straight line often, and that's often been the horse's detriment. But a ton of talent there. You have a horse like Donia Clota, who's coming up from Argentina for trainer Ignacio Correas IV. He's had success with those types of horses before, Didia, Full Serrano. So he knows how to bring these horses up. And then you have some familiar names, Be Your Best, Fluffy Socks in this field. I know, Kaylie, we were talking a little bit about this before you got started. I know Be Your Best is a horse that, you've been around, you've been watching a little bit. Seems like this horse is coming into maybe slightly better form, Fluffy Socks as well. So interesting field, though, of 12 in this race.
Yeah, I think that Be Your Best is a pretty good price on the morning line, at least. This horse seems to be in the best form that she's been in. So I really like, coming into this off of 2 back-to-back wins, and the fact that she's in really great form. And I think she drew pretty well, and she's a nice price on the morning line. So yeah, that was the one that I was immediately attracted to. Also think Sacred Wish, pretty, fair price, close second choice at 9-2 is a pretty good price. And I'm a big sucker for Fluffy Socks, but I don't know if I'm gonna look that way when it seems like a horse like Be Your Best could be a little bit of a better bet here.
Fluffy Socks, very honest runner. Always runs hard, always runs her race, but sometimes just doesn't quite get the nose down to get the win. Kind of does have a little bit of a seconditis occasionally. 5-1, your third choice on the morning line. And but like I said, a really interesting field. And the fact that Rakaya is such a very tepid favorite, and we'll see where the public money goes on Saturday once the betting opens. But I do think this feels like a race where, if you have a strong opinion, really press it, because this feels like a very open field. And if you can catch a 8-1, 10-1, 15-1 runner, this might be a really effective race to get that in. Gulfstream Park, a little bit notorious for being chalky on big days. This does not feel like a particularly chalky race. So going to be a good one for the bettors. Speaking of another good one for the bettors, the Pegasus World Cup Turf, going a mile and an eighth for 4-year-olds and up. Your morning line favorite, Nation's Pride, obviously for Charlie Appleby, William Buick. And this horse coming off of a rather poor effort in the Bahrain race, finishing 10th. Though that said, the horse did not run well over there last year, came back over here to North America and didn't miss the board in 3 starts, including a victory. Got a couple of other horses that you and I are pretty familiar with. Integration, Major Dude. Integration, a horse that we saw up close and personal a bunch of times. But interesting, 3-1, a little bit of a short price on this horse.
I thought so too, because this horse just does not really feel like a grade one horse to me. I know that, he always runs his race and he had a few, graded stakes wins, obviously, but anytime that he's been in a grade one, I don't really think that he's been, and I think that those are actually, weaker grade ones than this one is. So I don't really know if this seems like a pretty vulnerable 3-1. I don't really think that that's a great price on integration in this race at all.
Yeah, I think this is a race where you can make some arguments against the top choices. I think you can look at a horse like Nation's Pride and go, well, it didn't run that well at Bahrain. Actually took a couple of races over here in North America last year to get going. So maybe that's a play against. You look at integration, like you said, 2 grade ones, finished in the board both times, but couldn't get the win. And 2 wins are at grade 2s. Leads me to horses like Major Dude, who I think is in really good form now, coming off back-to-back wins, including the local prep. And then Mi Hermano Ramon. Listen, I know West Coast horses coming east is always a little bit of a question mark. I think coming east to Gulfstream Park is an easier transition just because of the way the turf course is here. But this is a horse that finished second by less than a length to Johannes last time out. Johannes might be one of the best American turf horses, full stop. And so this horse is very, very talented. Won a stakes race before that one last time out. So Mi Hermano Ramon, 8-1, a little bit interesting. And of course, we got to give the New York bred Spirit of St. Louis a little bit of love at 20-1 in this field. But listen, let's go to the headlining race. And that is, of course, the Pegasus World Cup. Grade 1, going a mile and an eighth for 4-year-olds and up on the dirt. Field of 12. There's one filly in this field, and it's not Torpedo Anna. It's Power Squeeze, who did win the Grade 1 Alabama last year up at Saratoga in thrilling fashion, coming from well off the pace. And this is a really interesting race. Your morning line favorite is locked at 5-2, but is a little bit marooned out on that post position 11. Kaylie, what were your thoughts when you saw this field, how it drew? Where's your eyes take you in terms of value and how you're thinking about playing this one?
I think the first horse that stuck out to me in terms of prices was Saudi Crown at 9-2. I think that this horse drew really well. And this horse kind of, needs the lead to be able to win, but this horse drew in a position that is going to set it up pretty perfectly for him. And I think 9-2 is a great price, the third choice. And I think Stronghold is another horse that really stuck out at 10-1 that drew really well here. And then obviously, I don't think Locked drew that well to the far outside. I mean, going a mile and an eighth. And, I just don't really think that that horse is going to find himself in a comfortable position and might be shuffled too far back in the early stages of the race, in my opinion. So he seems like a little bit of a vulnerable favorite, even though I had a complete different mindset before I saw how he drew. So that's a little unfortunate, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a great point, which is obviously Brian Nadeau, who had to come up with the morning lines, had to come up with these before the post position draw. And I think looking on paper, Locked being your 5-2 favorite makes plenty of sense. But when you start seeing the post position draw, how this race might shape out, suddenly Locked might be a little bit of a play against. I remember a couple of years ago, Todd Pletcher was none too pleased when a horse like Forte drew this far outside in the Florida Derby, going the same distance, a mile and an eighth, because it is a short stretch leading up to that first turn at Gulfstream Park. And Locked is not a horse that has outstanding early speed. He's also not a deep closer. He's more of a mid-pack runner. That does kind of leave you in no man's land. You can't really gun it to the front and cross and clear the field. Certainly not with a horse like Skippy Longstocking next to you, who's probably faster out of the gate. And you also aren't a deep closer that can just take back and make a left-hand turn basically to get over to the rail and just
Mhm.
let everybody go out in front of you. So the concern is that Locked is going to be caught 3-4 wide going into that first turn. And it's just, yeah, like you said, not going to be a very comfortable trip for him. So I think there are some questions there for sure. And I agree with you. Saudi Crown, I feel like won the post draw. And
Mhm.
I don't know if he'll end up getting 9-2 as a result of it, but that's a horse that I've seen up and close in person. And I saw him win the Pennsylvania Derby a couple of years ago. When he gets up on the lead, it's lights out. He's a
Mhm.
different horse when it's like that. I think he can get the mile in an eighth. I think he's best in a mile, but I think under the right conditions, he could get the 9 furlongs. The question is, and I've always been of this opinion, I don't think he's been the same horse since that really gutsy third place finish in the Saudi Cup last year, where he just ran a huge race and was just swallowed up late by Ushba Tesoro and Senior Buscador. Uh, he's been very hit or miss since then. And
Mhm.
he does have a couple of listed stakes victories coming off of one last time out, but obviously did not run particularly well in the Breeders' Cup. And but admittedly missed a little bit of a prep. They were pointed towards the ACK and then decided to scratch out of that race or not enter in that race because of all the rain conditions that were affecting Churchill Downs at that time. So, Saudi Crown he's a little bit of an enigma, but when he's on his A game, he could run a race very similar to Life is Good, just gets out there on the front end and gets the 9 furlongs.
Mhm.
Like you, obviously drawn to Stronghold quite a bit. 10-1, I think is a great value play and a horse that I couldn't believe this. And I don't know why, but I just couldn't believe it. Outside of the Kentucky Derby, has never finished out of the exacta. This
Mhm.
horse that just runs honest every single time.
Yeah, he's super consistent. He also seems to be improving a lot recently as well. I think honestly that's a really great bet at 10-1. He drew well. He's nothing but consistent. I think this horse honestly could even win here.
Yeah.
I think Locked is still very much the horse to beat, obviously, just going off of his last two starts coming off that layoff. And I thought that, although he didn't draw well. The way that he ran down Mulligan in the Cigar Mile was
Mm-hmm.
pretty impressive. So that's, I mean, another thing to kind of keep in mind here is that even though he didn't draw favorably, I'm not saying, that it's impossible for him to, find himself in the mix at all. But yeah, he's a little bit of a play against for me. Definitely going to look towards a horse, like you said, Stronghold at 10-1 that presents great value. And then Saudi Crown, you just don't really know the horse that you're going to get that day. But if that horse is loose on the lead, it's lights out. And then Krupi, I think, is a horse that's also pretty interesting to use underneath, maybe in like
Mm-hmm.
superfectas. And I think that horse, if you're looking at a race with a lot of speed, that horse is likely to come flying at the end and pick up some pieces. He always makes a late run and a strong one as well. So I think Krupi is a pretty interesting underneath play.
Yeah, Crippy's a really cool horse and one that it took him forever to break his maiden. But since he's broken his maiden, he's become a really reliable and consistent horse. He's gotten a couple
Mhm.
of wins in stakes company, but he's also run really well. I mean, he ran third in this race last year. He can run up and he can hit the board in these types of efforts. We should mention Gulfstream Park on big days. Listen, it tends to be a little bit more speed favoring. You
Mhm.
tend to see the track souped up, running pretty fast. And so that only continues to facilitate how things look for Saudi Crown. Now, listen, we don't want to upset anyone because we want to talk about the Kentucky Derby winner from last year, Mystik Dan, who's
Mhm.
in this race, 8-1 on the morning line. I think if you were just basing what you saw off of the last time out in the Malibu, he would be 30-1. But obviously, we know the horse has talent. Drawing a
Mhm.
little further outside, though, and I just don't know what sort of trip. He's a little bit like Locked in that I don't know what type of trip he's necessarily going to end up getting because he's not a speed horse. He's not a deep closer. He's a little. I don't see him being included on my tickets. If you like him, you're going to get a price on him though.
Yeah, I think that honestly, he's never gonna get the dream trip that he got in the
Yeah.
Derby, and he really likes the wet track, and he's not gonna get that either. I mean, he's very much a play against for me. I think it's awesome that obviously that he's running this year, and I really root for him, but I mean, he's very much a play against just based off of what we saw in the Malibu and the fact that I don't see him working out a trip here against horses like this either. So.
Yeah, and I think another play against for me is going to be Skippy Longstocking, who's a horse I
Mhm.
really respect. I really like Skippy Longstocking. I often make this argument: we need more horses like Skippy Longstocking in our sport. Just a really consistent Grade 2, Grade 3 runner. However, every single time this horse has run against Grade 1 company, it's not been great. In all of his Grade 1 races, sixth, fifth, third, did not finish, third, and then going back down to seventh and ninth and third and fifth. I mean, this is kind of where he is in those Grade 1 races, which is he can kind of hang around and hit the board every once in a while, but most times he's fifth, seventh, ninth, not finishing. He didn't finish this race last year. He was pulled up.
Mhm.
And that was something you and I were talking about. He was a little lathered up and a little overheated. It was a little bit warmer last year. It was 80 degrees, I think, at post time last year. It's projected to be about 70 this year, so I don't anticipate that maybe being the same issue. But so, just something to keep in mind to see. He's walking around in the post parade. If you see a lot of lather on his neck, then that's something to maybe pay attention to. Uh, but yeah, he's got both of those are going to be plays against for me. Yeah, Stronghold I think is my value play kind of in this one at 10-1, and
Mhm.
we should obviously also mention White Abarrio, who
Right.
is 3-1, the second choice, and is basically what 13, 14 months removed from being your Breeders' Cup Classic champion. And I
Mhm.
feel like we've kind of forgotten about White Abarrio. I don't know if I love the 3-1 price on him. I wish he was maybe 5-1, 6-1. We saw him come from well off the pace last time out, had a very tough trip in that last race at Gulfstream Park in the Mr. Prospector. But, again, drew well. And if he can break well and sit that tracking trip, he's going to have every opportunity to run down Saudi Crown at the top of the stretch if he's on his A game.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, this is a horse that you really can't count out at all. I think just like what you said, if he's able to sit right off of a horse like Saudi Crown, that might tire himself out a little bit. I think it could set up again for a horse like White Abarrio, and that's maybe where a locked or a White Abarrio come in if a horse isn't able to steal it right on the front end. So whatever way you look at it, White Abarrio is definitely going to play a big role in this race.
Absolutely. And a little bit like, I'm also happy that C2 Stables, the ownership group of White Abarrio, continues to run this horse. He still clearly
Mhm.
has a lot of talent. He's always run well at Gulfstream Park, where he won the Florida Derby going back,
Mhm.
a couple of years ago before the Kentucky Derby. And a really cool horse, and one that I know has a big cheering section. My good friend Mike Rennie loves this horse, and a lot of other people do too. So that's obviously an exciting one. New Grange, we should mention, former Phil D'Amato horse is now transferred into the Jose D'Angelo barn. That's notable just because Jose D'Angelo wins a lot of races at Gulfstream Park and knows how to get these horses ready. We'll see. I don't like that's a pretty long shot, I think, runner in this race. And then I'll just ask you, listen, she's not Anna, but does Power Squeeze have any chance at all in this race from the far outside?
Well, to be honest, I was surprised that, she was even going. I wasn't really aware that she was pointing towards this race. I think it's really cool that they're running her in it, really great to take a shot. Obviously, she's a really nice filly in her division.
Yeah.
But I just, she's playing with the big dogs in here. I mean, if it was the best filly of her division coming in here, obviously it'd be a bit of a different story, but this horse does love Gulfstream as well.
Yeah.
And she's a nice filly. I mean, she's play against for me, but I'm excited to see how she runs in here. I think it's, pretty exciting that they're sending her. I'm interested to say.
It is. It is exciting that they're sending her. And she does like Gulfstream Park quite a bit. So you're absolutely right about that. And familiar surroundings, and obviously must be training exceptionally well for the connections to feel confident enough to enter her in this race. And
Mm.
listen, she's not Anna. And I would say even if Anna was in this race, if she drew post position 12, she might be a play against for me. And so if
Maybe
Anna's a
even
play
me.
against that,
Yeah,
yeah, I was like Power Squeeze certainly is. Uh,
for sure.
but listen, it's going to be an exciting race. We're going to have a lot of great content for you on NYRA Bets for this. And, Kaylie, I can't wait to keep digging into this race and this entire card a lot more throughout the week. But appreciate you hopping on and joining me and talking through some of our initial reactions and thoughts to these three races. And going to be a really fun week and weekend.
Of course, I'm super excited to dive into the past performances, and this seems like it's going to be a really fun race to handicap. So, really exciting, and the day is obviously always super entertaining as well. So, I love watching Pegasus Day and excited about it.
Absolutely. It's always a party down there at South Florida and always a lot of fun as we are dealing with winter weather right now in New York. Yes, we can live vicariously through our friends Claudia Spadaro and Brittany Urton and Samantha Perry and all the good folks down there at Gulfstream Park. So, listen, appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure to press that like and subscribe button today on NYRA Bets YouTube. We got a lot of great content coming up for you this week and throughout the rest of the year. So, listen, for Kaylie Shapiro, my name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and profitable day at the races and reminding you, friends, it's now post time.